This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome. We're an award-winning show dedicated to empowering women in every profession through inspiring stories and expert insights. No topic is off limits on our show. We power women on the road to success with expert and celebrity interviews and information you need. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
Storytelling is powerful. We grow up with stories that inspire us and spark our imagination as kids. Stories teach us and entertain us. They're also a great medium for achieving success. Christina Royster has been especially good at weaving creative tales. She believes profoundly in the value of storytelling and how women can use that as a platform for their success. This Morgan State University graduate took her skills to Hollywood and began doing situation comedy writing for popular sitcoms like Sister Sister and For Your Love. Christina is also a performer and landed herself a role in Sister Act 2 with Whoopi Goldberg. Christina is the visionary behind Big Media Agency, a communications firm that specializes in web design, digital marketing, public relations, and social media. She's written for major publications and was featured on the cover of the Baltimore Business Journal. Christina is very active in her community and church and has done mentoring for youth in Baltimore. She's an amazing lady with an equally amazing story. Christina's with us today. Welcome, Christina. Wow, you've accomplished a lot in just a few years.
Thank you so
No kidding.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I feel so fortunate and blessed to have had such an amazing career thus far. Certainly working in Hollywood gave me a particular affinity for storytelling. I'd sort of elevated my love of storytelling from, when I was a young girl and, writing for my high school newspaper and, really involved in essays and all the ways in which you could weave stories together in order to influence people. So I guess the whole thing started way back when I was in 6th grade, and my grandfather asked me to write him a letter for each week during summer vacation to chronicle the things that I was up to. I felt pretty intimidated by that because this man was, he had advised presidents. He was, a really well-known academician in politics. He also was a professor at Morgan State University. And, how was my weekly letter going to entertain someone who was so well-read, well-versed, and such an amazing communicator? So I tried my best to make every week of my time as a volunteer for the American Red Cross during that summer seem more interesting than the week before it. And in the process, I really fell in love with storytelling. Cut to working on my high school newspaper, writing about everything from the injustices that were going on in South Africa, in apartheid, to the fact that a lot of kids skipped school for student skip. And that wasn't, I thought that was kind of offensive because I loved school at the time. So when I think about Hollywood, I kind of wound up being in Hollywood very much by happenstance. I was a Thurgood Marshall Scholar at Morgan State University. And as such...
Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I was the first Thurgood Marshall Scholar at Morgan State, and I was amongst the first group of Thurgood Marshall Scholars across the nation. And one day after exams, I was so excited to have finished my last exam, and I was walking down the stairs, some pretty steep stairs in one of the administrative buildings. And unfortunately, my ankle went to the right, my body went to the left, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor with a sprained ankle.
Ooh.
And so that landed me in my dorm room for spring break, looking pretty pitiful. And all my friends were, going all these fun places. And my phone rang, and it was one of those gigantic yellow phones, sort of like the ones you see when you think about Alexander Graham Bell. It was huge. It had one of those big receivers. And I answered it, and it was the executive director of the Thurgood Marshall Foundation, who asked me to be a student ambassador for Bill Duke, who is a prolific actor, writer, producer, Jackie, the actress who was in the shows 227, as well as Sister Sister, and Nancy Wilson, who of course needs no introduction. And they wanted a few scholars to come up to New York to serve as student ambassadors to these stars because they were filming a PSA. And I believe it had something to do with the Put a Child in a Seat of Power campaign that the Thurgood Marshall Foundation was, or the Thurgood Marshall Fund was filming along with some other partners. And so she asked me to do this. And I said, oh, absolutely, sure. When do I need to be there? And she said, sometime next week. So, of course, I nursed that ankle like nobody's business. I mean,
yeah, I bet.
I elevated it. I put ice on it, whatever was needed, bandaged it up well enough to hobble on over to the train station and get up to New York. And that was really the moment that changed my life. That evening, all of the actors and actresses, as well as a variety of VIPs, met at Sylvia's restaurant in New York City. It's a soul food restaurant. And somehow I slid in next to Bill Duke. And I said, please, Mr. Duke, can I work on your new movie? I hear you're going to be shooting a new movie in Pittsburgh. I'll work for free. I'll cover my travel to get there.
I love your tenacity.
Yes. You know what, Shelley? I'm amazed by it now because I'm like, who was that girl? And so what could he say? But yes, he's this, I don't know how tall he is. I should know. I think maybe 6'5" or 6'6", and I'm this little girl at the time, and it's like, please, Mr. Duke. And so of course he said yes. And the next thing I knew, I was the summer between my junior and senior years of college, I was working in Pittsburgh on a film called The Cemetery Club. That's with Diane Ladd, Ellen Burstyn, and Lainey Kazan. Danny Aiello was also in it. And very much a part of what I did was, try to engage these actors who, were very, very accomplished with my story. They wanted to know, okay, Christina, who are you? Well, I'm a student at Morgan State University, and I tried to make it sound as exciting as I could. And, this is where relationship building is so very important in any industry. Mm-hmm. But, thankfully I had parents who kind of bridged the gap related to that. And I knew how to have conversations with people and treat, I won't say my elders, but people who were more seasoned than I, with respect, and to hold conversations. And so, one thing I remember as I tell the story of those times, I remember that every morning Diane Ladd would say to me, because I had to get their breakfast, I was working as a production assistant. She would say, now, Christina, you just tell those caterers that all Diane Ladd wants is a poached egg and a slice of tomato. And that's all Diane Ladd wants. And it was but, each time, she was such a lovely, she was always so nice to me and the rest of the PAs. And, I really learned how to just be myself and, kind of, capture people's attention as an authentic person, because I had these actresses around me and actors who were, it was all a show to some degree, even their authentic selves. So fast forward, after that, I went back and finished my last year of school, and then called Mr. Duke's office again and said, hey, I hear you're going to be working on a film in Los Angeles called Sister Act 2. Would love to use my experience that thankfully you guys gave me when I was working on the Cemetery Club last year, can I come work on the film? And they said, sure. Now, 2 weeks into my uh, work with them on the Cemetery Club, they made me a full-fledged production assistant. So remember before when I asked, I had volunteered. Well, they went ahead and started paying me. So I had like real experience to put on this resume and take me to California. So I graduated from Morgan State on a Saturday. I was in flight on up the plane to Los Angeles on that Sunday, and I was working on the set on Monday.
Wow.
And it was, I still can't believe that happened. I can't believe my parents let me go 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, I bet they were a little nervous, but it had to have been just a thrill to be able to do that right out of college.
Right out of college. It was such a thrill. I was able to pick up my rental car. It was a black Mustang convertible.
Woo! Now that's big stuff at what, 21 or
21?
Wow. Yeah.
And it was incredible. And here I was traveling to the set at call time was like an ungodly hour, like maybe 5:30 or 6 a.m. because I was one of the production assistants and we worked 12 and 14 and 16-hour days. But I was so excited. And back then, all we had was we didn't have obviously the GPS systems that we have now. We had, I think they were called Thomas guides, these big map books. In those books, you would have like everywhere you needed to go in LA or, the greater Los Angeles area, but it was pretty intimidating. So
it would be.
It was really scary. But, it's funny because I guess when you're young and, you smile and you sound intelligent, lots of people like to help you out. So I would just ask for directions.
Sure.
And so anyway, did that, worked on Karina with Whoopi Goldberg and Ray Liotta as a production assistant, then went on to work for the Walt Disney Company and was really excited to be able to read scripts as they came in from writers and producers. As a part of that job, we all participated in what was called Weekend Read. And actually, everybody in Hollywood did that. Over the weekend, you'd get the scripts, you'd read them and try to figure out which ones you would recommend be made into movies. Obviously the actors and everybody else, they were reading them for other reasons, like whether or not they would want to attach themselves. And worked at the Walt Disney Company, specifically Touchtone Pictures, for about 2 years. And then had a conversation with a former professor at Morgan State. So while I was at Morgan State, I was a part of what's called a writing for television program. It was the first year that the university offered this program. And so we were working on, there was one show, I think it was something with the word fire in it. James Earl Jones was in that show. It was a great show. We're working on spec scripts for that show and others. And my former professor said that I was really, so gifted in writing and really good in her class, I should go ahead and try to become a writer's assistant on a show. So I tried my hand at that. Somehow I was able to get to someone at Warner Brothers who put me in touch with a producer. His name is Craig Wyrick Solari, really, really nice guy. And he interviewed me for the Wayans Brothers show starring Sean and Marlon Wayans. And next thing I knew, I was a writer's assistant there for a bit. And then I wound up working as a writer's assistant on Living Single. If you remember that show with Erica Alexander. I'm thinking of the characters' names and not the actresses' names. The one who played with Kim Fields and several others. And it was so exciting to work on a show that my friends were talking about at home.
Yeah, it would be.
And I remember just a small thing. I was able to use a picture of myself and my date from my senior prom. Kyle, one of the characters, went back to his senior prom, and so he needed all these like retro pictures for the set, for the walls or something.
Yeah.
it was just kind of crazy. Like, wow, is this really happening? Um,
So you were featured, kind of a cameo, if
yes.
you will. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, did that for quite a while. And then I was hired on Sister Sister. And I actually was a staff writer during the last season of the show. And I wrote an episode called The Domino Effect. And it was pretty cool because the B story of that script took a look at kind of gender roles and, Ray, the father figure in the show, was having a poker party and having his guys over, and Lisa wanted to have a book night featuring one of Iyanla Vanzant's books, and she at the time was the new inspirational writer to kind of hit everybody's TV screen. And so it was about how these two groups of people, these men and these women, kind of wound up mixing, and they both liked the other things jam, the poker or the book night. So it was pretty funny. And then there was an A story where Tia and Tamara went to a national student leadership conference, and their boyfriends took these two shy freshmen who were thinking of dropping out of school to the dance, and then found out that Tia and Tamara were coming home early. So, they were in a bit of trouble. But the whole point of all of those experiences is that, and then what it really showed me is that not only does everybody have a story, everyone has a story that is worthy of being told.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's, your story may not resonate with me, but surely it'll resonate with Kathy, or it'll resonate with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
When you tell stories, whether they're fictional, whether they're, about something that you lived, the story that I'm telling right now about, how I was able to work in Hollywood as a young person, you not only pull back the layers of your life, but you're able to help someone's life be ignited with a piece of your soul, depending on the complexity of the story and the resonance with the audience. And that's what I want to impress upon women, because I think, historically in society, although, women are much more kind of, forward in society, doing incredible things in terms of careers, and, we're not just, homemakers anymore, far from it.
Right.
But I think there's still that perception that we all elevate men's stories over women's stories.
Yeah, it does feel that way, that women's stories are minimized, and they
Yes.
play a huge role in humanity.
Huge role.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. Relationships in business are super important, as well as having conversations with the people who can parlay you to the next level of your career. Storytelling is powerful. Telling stories helps us with these conversations, and it helps other people. Stories we tell pull back the layers of our life, and we ignite others' lives when we talk about who we are and where we've been. We inspire others. Telling stories to children shape who they are, inspire them, and help in their development. All of us have important stories to tell. Christina Royster, the owner of Big Media Agency, excels at storytelling. It's this skill that's opened doors to her in Hollywood, network TV, at Touchtone Pictures, and other opportunities. Christina wants women to harness the power of their stories. Stories shine the light on the successes women have had and showcase who they are. Too often, there are not enough stories about women and their victories that inspire others. We're learning more about the power of storytelling with Christina. Christina, you know, it's really true that the stories our mothers tell us when we're growing up are really, really powerful.
Going back to what you said about the hand that rocks the cradle, you know, naturally, most women, you know, being the carriers of children, are the ones who begin, you know, predominantly telling those stories to their children as babies. We know that, you know, those early childhood years are extremely important in terms of cognitive development. You know, even, and I'm not going to go into Bruce Lipton right now. There's a whole different, I can't, you know, but Bruce Lipton and some others talk about epigenetics and, you know, really how in vitro or in utero, rather, you know, babies are really impressed upon. You can hear that, you know, they can hear what's going on outside. You know, if that mother is stressed, they can feel that, you know, and I guess that has to, you know, probably triggers fight or flight. I mean, all of these things inform trauma. So, you know, having that peaceful mother who tells a peaceful story, you know, reading the story to the child while the child is in the womb, reading to children when they're, you know, infants and you know, little ones, and that effect that that has on children. You know, we don't really think about it, but that is storytelling, and it's storytelling at best.
And mothers play a huge role at a very, very young age. To reference the comment you were talking about, we were talking before we started the interview. My father always said, the woman who rocks the cradle rules the world. I mean, he had an immense respect for women and mothers and the role they play in shaping a child. And I know for a fact that my mother certainly gave me an interest and a love of reading, and it sparked my imagination. She would read to me on a regular basis every night, and I would memorize those books. And people would come over, and I would pull out the book. I couldn't read yet, but people were convinced I knew how to read because I'd memorized everything, you know?
That's right. And that's so important, you know, because when we think about how children are able to understand and begin to, you know, replicate language, you know, they are watching for those cues. They are looking at, you know, how the words are being formed on the mother's mouth, on the parents' mouths, you know, what those sounds look like, you know, the facial expressions. And so those things were probably very foundational to you at that time. You probably did know how to read. You were just, you know, going to that next step. You can't tell me that my oldest child, my oldest is 21. She just turned 21, which is astounding to me. And her father worked for Verizon and wore these shirts that said, you know, had the word Verizon on them. And I think at like 2.5, I heard her say Verizon, you know, in her baby voice. you can't tell me that that didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
She had heard that word. She knew that was an important word in that
Sure.
place because it was where daddy worked. So,
Yeah. Kids
so
observe everything. They're little sponges. They really, really are. And in terms of speech and all of that, that's so important too. I remember as a child, mom never believed in talking baby talk because she didn't want her child talking baby talk. So she would talk to me like she was an adult, and she used some big words, which I got used to. And I remember it was in second grade. I had a love of reading and actually storytelling by third grade, but big words just fascinated me. And I remember there was this boy who was just he was kind of a bully, and he was telling me something on the playground that I couldn't do something. And I said, yes, I can. It's my prerogative.
all
And
right. Wow.
and he went to the teacher after recess and said, Shelley said a naughty word. And she summoned me up to her desk and she said, what did you say to whatever his name was? And I said, I told him it was my prerogative. And she tried not to start laughing. And she said,
hilarious.
So she said, do you know what that means? I said, yes, it means I can do it if I want to.
Right.
And she said, okay, Shelley, you can sit down now.
That is hilarious. Yes. And you know what? And that, I think that really is important. The fact that your mother did not talk baby talk to you.
Mm.
And it's important in terms of development. So when I had my first child, I was completely freaked out. Like, I read the What to Expect When You're Expecting book, frontwards, backwards, sideways. I didn't want anybody to touch her.
Sure.
Leave her be. And so that was one of the things that I did. I did not talk baby talk. I didn't talk baby talk to either of my children. And I think it's so important as it relates to communication and even storytelling. When you listen to kids, they tell stories all the time, whether they're, grounded in reality or, whether they're, they've just made them up about, their special friend. What do you call that?
Their imaginary friend?
Yes, their imaginary friend. Yeah. And so I think stories actually help us believe, even as children, believe in whatever it is that we're, believe in something, believe that we can do something,
yep.
Believe that we'll have a better day, whatever it is. Stories strike belief or spark. Stories spark belief. So I decided that Hollywood, I was in Los Angeles for about 10 years working in Hollywood. And, there were a couple of factors that influenced me to look elsewhere in terms of where I wanted to live. One was that I had been working in the situation comedy business, and a lot of reality shows were kind of coming in and taking over. And I remember going to lunch with a bunch of writers and producers, most of whom were, had been working in the field much longer than I had. And it was staffing season, and everybody was waiting for a call from their agent. And we were at a Melrose restaurant, and we all had cell phones, and somebody, that distinct ding when you hear like a fork hit a glass in a restaurant or something.
Yep.
And then we all like reach for our phones really quickly, pull them out, and nobody's phone was ringing. It was the glass. It was somebody. And I thought,
that's funny.
And I thought, I don't want to be waiting for my life to start. Like, I don't want to. And, that was a little bit from my myopic 27-year-old mind, because, I had become a situation comedy writer at the age of 25, which was unheard of.
Oh, it's amazing. The opportunity.
And
you didn't want to wait for that ding. You wanted to proceed now, right?
I did not want to wait for the ding. I wanted to proceed, and I wanted to have a family and all of those things. And, I missed my parents. They lived back here in Maryland, and my grandmother was ill, and I was very close to her. So I decided to come back east. And that's when the real storytelling started. Before I went to Hollywood and when I was in school, and actually as a freshman at Morgan State, I was the, I think, associate editor for the Spokesman newspaper, and then I became editor. So journalism was sort of the other side of the yellow wood for me, if we were to reference the Robert Frost poem. The two, woods that I were that he says um, he was diverged between two yellow woods, two paths. One for me was entertainment, and the other one was, advertising and journalism. And so I was fortunate enough to find out what would happen with each. And so actually, when I went to Hollywood, I turned down an internship with a really big advertising firm in Maryland and Baltimore. I think it was called WB Donor, if I remember correctly.
Oh, huge ad agency. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always wondered, like, okay, what would that have, what would that be like? And so I wound up becoming an all weekly writer for Baltimore City paper. So having, I did the whole sitcom thing, I did the whole Hollywood thing, came back, decided to focus more on journalism, um, became an award-winning writer, wrote incredible stories, kind of was able to go on odysseys, really, write about, things that I wouldn't have been able to write about in the traditional press, everything from an ultra runner who ran like 40 miles a day to a two-part cover story on the Black Panther Party to a two-part cover story on about Pennsylvania Avenue, which was Baltimore's stop on the Chitlin Circuit, which was, one of the places where Black people could go to enjoy entertainment, like in the 20s and 30s, and before integration. Like all of these like amazing stories, and I won a bunch of awards for them. But my 2-year-old, the same one who could read, I think, at the age of 2.5, said to me, she kept asking me all these questions that I felt like I couldn't answer, like about deep space. And like, I don't even know how I guess
Wow.
they were talking about these things in her preschool. And I thought to myself, I'm going to need to make more money to send this child to independent school. Cause she sent me to Google all the time. Like, she didn't know that that's what I was doing, but Google had just come out and I was Googling it, trying to figure out
how do I answer deep space questions from my 2-year-old?
Right.
I was like, wow.
She
You had a little
answered.
Einstein there.
Yeah, she was asking like about, all the planets and which, the sizes and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying as close attention as I needed to in school when we were talking about that. So anyway, I was always being pitched by PR people as a journalist. And I thought, I can do PR. Why don't I look into that and grow my career in that way? So I wound up working for a few independent schools, including my own alma mater, which was Mercy High School in Baltimore. It's an all-girls Catholic school. And I became a PR coordinator, and I kept rising up the ranks and, worked for a few advertising agencies. So then I was able to kind of see what that WB Donor life would have been like, except a different agency. And that's when the storytelling really became personal, because I found a lot of my friends, relatives even, who knew that I'd been working in advertising, wanted to solve marketing communications problems. They wanted a website. They wanted to, put their product out there on the market. And the problem might have been, they didn't quite know how to package it. They didn't know, what people might respond to, or where, how to design it, et cetera, and so forth. And so I just kind of fell into this whole, the traditional agency that we called an advertising agency evolved really more of a marketing communications agency, because we went from traditional media, just print, TV, radio, to, digital and SEO and inbound and, all these different types.
And that's quite a transition, uncharted territory. It's still evolving, you know.
Very much. It's definitely still evolving. And I predict that the next frontier will actually merge what we call traditional entertainment with some of these marketing communications strategies, et cetera, and so forth. For example, if you think about YouTube, and I think YouTube may be the second largest search engine. I don't know. YouTube and Google, I think, battle each other. I think YouTube has to be number 2 now. But a lot of people, including myself, watch YouTube much more than any of the Netflixes and the, Hulus of the world.
Sure. A lot of people do. You hear them saying, hey, check out YouTube for this particular video that just popped up. It's a source of news and everything else. And like you were saying, the storytelling that goes with a media agency. I mean, you were just a perfect fit for that, helping other people tell their stories. And it makes so much sense when you're saying that women need to tell their stories if they want to have success in business. I think we have a tendency to play down who we are, you know?
We do. We really do. And I think it comes from, I think we kind of, when we think about nurturing our families and the sacrifices we make, somehow we equate that to playing second fiddle in terms of who we are as people. And that's not only is that not good for us, it's not good for the people around us. Because, like, for example, I have 2 daughters. So, if I play myself down, that teaches them to do the same thing. Because that's what they see. And the other thing is that we have so much to give the world. I remember when I was a student at Mercy High School, there was there was a class where we were talking about careers or something, and a stat was shared with me that women changed their careers an average of 7 times in their lifetimes. And obviously child rearing, all those things, kind of the nurturing, maybe even, taking care of your parents later in life. Those types of things tend to shape our trajectories.
It does. Yep.
But what about all the stories that accumulate in the process as we're growing through that? What if we just really made sure that those stories got out there? What about the next generation of women and the generation after that and the generation after that? There's so many.
That's why I wrote my book, just for that reason. So that when I'm gone, that people, the women that are struggling in the future can look at my story and say, hey, if she can get through all that, then so can I. So I wanted to leave a history, like a legacy, so that when I'm gone, that the book will always be there. That's why it's in 4 languages.
Wow. I think that's amazing. I think everyone should do that. And I'm sure that was quite a feat. But I think everyone should really think about, what is the best vehicle for telling my story? How can I get it out there? And how can I make sure that it resonates with the people who need to hear it?
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
Stories shape our imagination, who we are, and who we become, beginning in childhood. Telling stories as an adult share who we are with others. They empower others and help others remember our legacy and the important roles that we've played in life. These stories also help in our success. The stories that we tell our children about ourselves establish us as role models and shape who they become. Our children will model our behavior. If we play our story down, they'll play their own story down too. We can't do without stories. Christina Royster, the owner of Big Media Agency, wants women to harness the power of stories in both business and their personal lives. Storytelling has totally shaped who Christina is. Christina, the need for authentic stories is so important for people.
In marketing communications, that's really all I'm doing. I am helping my clients find their authentic story, their voices. And many of them, some of them are doing that with a little bit of trepidation, because, some of them have just written their first book and they're, taking a leap of faith and, but helping them realize that the story, the meat that they have is really good and somebody's going to pick it up, and finding the right vehicles to pick it up and actually run with it. And then to get it out there in places where people are looking for it. That's really the key. So,
yeah. Well, when you think about it, these are skills once you get to know yourself and
yes.
you've written down and really recorded the history you've had in a story, you're going to have more respect for yourself. You might even be awestruck. That would give you more strength when you go on job interviews, that sort of thing, when they say, well, tell us about yourself,
Yes. And you know what? I hadn't even thought about that. The fact that when you look back at what you've been through and what you've, how you have defeated the odds, or, how you've been able to do the things that at that time felt a little bit intimidating or scary, and yet you did them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just how much courage and belief and faith that can give you.
Yep.
And then, of course, what you just said about, looking at other women who really need to hear the same message. And you never know what part of it's going to resonate with someone. I know that I've shared that story about going to Hollywood with many of my friends. And years later, they've said, even recently, I heard that story about you going to Hollywood and I knew that I could do X, Y, and Z.
Yep. If you can do it, I can do it. Yes, it inspires so many people. It
inspires
really does.
People. And, we make, I think as women, we're taught to approach life as if we had lots of windows open on our computer. We're taught to be everything, right?
Yep.
I can do this, I can do that.
Multitask.
Multitask. What's that old commercial? I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. That.
Yeah.
Woman. I mean, really, that is the mindset, the mentality that we're taught. We can work, we can come home, take care of our family, look cute for our husbands, like, that whole thing. We were taught to be every woman, so to speak, to quote, I think, Aretha Franklin and also Whitney Houston. But there is power in, first of all, being ourselves. Yep. And being every woman to ourselves.
I like that.
And then also telling the story, talking to people about the gaps in between.
Yeah. Finding your authentic self would empower you, and you're going to empower others. People can see the possibilities. I think that women too many times just kind of, it was no big deal, when in fact it really, really was. And Christina, the tenacity you had and the insight to do what you did at a very young age, a lot of people and women are afraid to, and they doubt themselves. So telling a story and really putting it down on paper or on a computer reminds people of how awesome they truly are. And that's empowering.
It is. And what's kind of crazy is when I think about it, I wonder sometimes if I really thought about the impact of what that would mean like living 3,000 miles away, like, just going and doing it. And I wonder, I mean, I know I was excited, but I wonder if I really, really thought, because I didn't have any thoughts like, oh, LA is going to be a scary place. I could get kidnapped or, I didn't have any thoughts like that. Now it was a different time, but at the same time, I didn't even think about, being us having been a big fish in a small pond and taking my big fish into a bigger pond and being a scared little fish.
Sure. Well, you had immense courage and you had some great mentors growing up that helped a lot. We only have a couple of minutes here. I love all of your philosophies, and I really think this is super empowering for women. What do you recommend women do? How do they start this? And if they would like to utilize your agency, if they have a business and so forth, how do they get a hold of you?
Certainly. Well, we would love to connect with them. They can find us at bigmediaagency.com. They can also follow us at Real Big Media Agency on Instagram, and on Facebook, we're Big Media Agency. And we'd love to connect with them and love to help them. We have a bunch of branding services, including what's called a story excavation, where we really get to the heart of their story and really take a look at what the assets are in terms of telling the story and making it connect and resonate with your target audiences. In terms of the advice, I think in terms of storytelling, you first have to allow yourself to really connect with the power of your own story. Don't minimize it, don't, make sure that you are in circles where you're allowed to be your authentic self, and take that story, write it down, make a plan, create a roadmap. And then, so number one is to recognize the story, commemorate the story, and align yourself with partners who can help you tell the story. That's the first thing. And that can be done informally. It can be done in your group of friends, or, you can come to a big media agency or, professional, and we can help you get your story out there. I think the second piece is to develop that story. Find the tools that you need to really, walk it out. If we're talking about a film script, what we typically work on first is a treatment, and then we flesh it out and it becomes a full-fledged script. So understanding the tools of your trade. Is it going to be a book? How do you write a book? What are the tools that I need to be able to really get this into the type of format that is highly consumable by my target audience? And then the third piece is really get the story out there, make it travel. And again, that's where you enlist partners to help you do that. There are a lot of vehicles today. Obviously, the podcast is a huge vehicle for all of us who are trying to tell stories and also connect with others who are just as passionate about telling their stories. We have social media, and, we can all at any time, in any place, get on a video and really tell the story that we're looking to share with people. But the other piece of it is just to make sure that the story is as clear and succinct and as easy to consume as possible. So
keeping it simple and focused. Yep.
That's right. Keeping it simple and keeping it focused. But we would absolutely love for women out there who are looking to tell their stories to connect with us. We will definitely help them tell their stories. And, we believe in building champions in the process. The women are already champions, but we want to help them see just how incredible they are in their storytelling.
I love this, Christina. You're helping a lot of people, and you've got some terrific insight here. What is your website again?
It's bigmediaagency.com.
This is terrific. You've had some tremendous insight, very fortuitous at a very young age. I'm really impressed. And this is great advice. This is great advice.
Thanks so much. Bill Duke, the mentor I mentioned earlier, one of the things he always impressed upon me, because I would always thank him for helping me to move forward in my career. He said, once you get there, just reach back and bring somebody else with you.
Oh, I love it. Pay it forward. Oh, yeah. Kathy and I both totally embrace that. That's what humanity needs to do. It would change the world.
It would change the world. Yeah. And we really need it. We need it on every level. Even though I have a story to tell, and, this is a story that I've told quite a bit, I am looking to be inspired by a woman who is at another level in her career to which I aspire to tell their story to me. Yep. It's almost like we're all on ladders or lattices climbing higher, and the stories are what is, driving us, propelling us upward, and that's what we have to remember. No story is insignificant. Stories are all important. They're really, really a fabric of our belief in, becoming, believing that we can become who we want to become. And so that's the reason I tell stories.
I love it. Well said. Thank you, Christina, for being on the show. This has been really enlightening for everybody.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Shelley and Kathy. You guys are amazing. I love Women Road Warriors podcast, and I'm going to tell all of the women I know to subscribe and tune in and get on the road.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Woo-hoo, thank you.
We want to empower as many women as possible. So thank you, Christina. This is terrific.
You are so welcome. Well, thank you for taking time to speak with me. And here we are. Here we go. We're on the road.
There you go. On the road to success.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters. So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. So check us out, and please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.